Hello.
All right, Josh Hall, round two.
All right.
In returning to the scene of the crime, I think we were sitting right over there actually last time. How many years ago is that, do you think?
Let's see, we bought this house in January of 18. So it'd be within 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Sounds
probably.
about right.
Yeah, right in the kitchen where all the magic happens.
I was going to say, it's come together beautifully.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's just, we were really lucky to get into this place, and a guy basically flipped it, bought it from the original owner in the 50s, and we were fortunate to be able to pull it off and hang artwork and put a bed in the bedroom, and that was it. Didn't have to really, literally didn't have to do anything except buy blinds.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How close is it to the shop?
I don't know. As a crow flies, maybe a mile and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, super close.
It's
epic. Really lucky, and we're within 10 minutes of every place I grew up surfing, and 10 minutes to our family's places and my family. So it's like this neighborhood, because I grew up in Claremont up the hill, and we had friends that went to Mission Bay and Claremont. We'd come down here, and I'd be like, wow, this neighborhood's cool, man. Because it's all fishermen and firemen and just a good vibe, and Joe Roper Sr., I worked at his house when I was 14, and he's down the block, and Larry Gephardt's a block away, and Skip lives up the hill. And so just as far as San Diego goes, Bay Park's kind of a really neat community.
You have designed quite the life. Congratulations.
Thank you, dude.
You're killing it.
Yeah. It's humbling, and it's crazy to take a step back and really look at everything that's happening. Thank you.
Yeah. So obviously we're coming off of the Kauai series, and what listeners probably don't know is that you were largely responsible for helping me facilitate a lot of the Kauai interviews. So I wanted to have you on because there's a lot to discuss about Kauai. Even me talking about it and doing this series of episodes, I feel like is delicate water that you want to tread, and you don't want to spoil any secrets. And what was unique about it, though, was how many people there were willing to actually engage in the podcast and share their stories, which I wasn't expecting. What are your thoughts on that whole dynamic that goes on with Kauai about not spoiling the secret? And is there a way to tell the stories and do justice to those people and those?
Yeah. I think you did a really good job. I've always tried to tread really lightly there, like you said, to be super respectful, and thankfully the people that I've gotten to know there, and Small World Connections, and my mentor from high school lives there, but I think you did a great job. You did. The people that you got to tell their story that maybe never would have been heard, because they tend to just stay to themselves, and they keep their head down, and they work and they surf and they build boards, but they aren't like, hey, And so it was really cool to hear a lot of the stories.
And that's the thing. I don't want to exploit. And so even going over there, I felt reticent. I was like, I don't know if this is even going to turn into anything. Maybe I'll get nothing and come home empty-handed. But a lot of people do want to tell their stories, and people want to be heard. I think they just they don't want it to be sensationalized, or they don't want to be editorialized or whatever. And so, in the end, I think it also came out okay. But we should also state Jimmy, your buddy Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy Rodello.
So give a background of what what's your experience in Kauai, and what's your connection to the island?
Well, it's kind of funny in two different ways. So my friend Smokey Bayless, who was my high school Spanish teacher, his wife, his wife's family bought their house down in Honolulu by the pavilion, I think in 79 or 80. My first trip to Kauai was in 2000 for their wedding. So Smokey and Kim got married.
Okay.
They invited 40 people over. We had all the houses there together, and it was one of the most magical weeks ever. So through them, that was my first trip over there. My dad and mom went there, I think, on their honeymoon, even before I was born in 79 or 80. So my dad had been there, but I went in 2000, and I was just blown away. it was in the summertime in July, and we went and surfed on the west side and got waves, and I had a brand new fry, and my mind was blown. I'm like, oh my gosh, this place might have some of the best waves in the world I've ever seen. And then, so 2009 was my next trip. It took 9 years to get back, and I went, Smokey and our other best friend, Joe Core. It was like a boys' trip. It was spring break. They're both teachers. Smokey's in high school, and Joe teaches 8th grade. And so we went over and got some small waves at Honolulu and got to experience a little bit more. It was April, right? So there was kind of waves everywhere. And again, at that point, I decreed that Honolulu was my favorite place I'd ever been to. Fast forward, I don't know, maybe not even that much further along, maybe 2010 or 11, I get a phone call from a guy from Kauai. Hey man, what's up? My name's Jimmy. Yeah, I was at the Honolulu swap meet, and there were some fries there, and but they say, well, if you can't get a Skip Frye, like check out this guy Josh Hall in San Diego. So we were just bantering back and forth, and Jimmy's just like super jacked up and telling me like what he does and his kind of little bit. I'm like, yeah, man. So ended up shaving him a 10.6, kind of Eagle. It was a JR model, nothing to do with his initials, but we just hit it off. We just like hit it off. He kind of told me he was like a youth pastor back in the day, and he like ran camps where he'd take kids into their house, and he would teach them how to fish and how to surf, how to dive, how to swim, how to paddle, like prone paddle. He'd take them like on downwind Nepali runs, and I just was like, whoa, this guy's gnarly. Like that sounds scary, basically.
Yeah.
And a couple of kids now have come to they've become Navy SEALs. So. And it was a God thing, right? It was kind of like a youth kind of church based thing, but without being overbearing on the God part. But that was involved in it too. And like Skip, Skip's a Christian, and and I was vibing with that too at that time. And it just was like, wow, this guy's he's doing something awesome. And so he flew over, I think his son at the time was living in Newport. Anyways, long story short, Skip and I drove up to Sano and met him, and I had his new board, and we all went surfing, and it just was this like, whoa, this guy's cool. And that's how it started. Amazing. I mean, that was it. And we were just like kind of best friends starting right there. And he, we talk about Kauai and the history and kind of his history with being there. I think he moved there. They might've been 18 or 19. He's not born and raised there, but he just told me all the old guys that, like Furcat and Ambrose and Lunch Meat and these guys, that would come over and they'd ride big boards out at the outer reefs. And, he just was vibing on the big board thing. And of course I was building those styles of boards, and we just hit it off. And my dad and I went back over there 2014. We all met up in Oahu. And I'd shaped everybody 11 footers, and we all met up in Oahu and did a full South Shore trip. Like his family came over, and my dad and I met up there, and we just started talking about it. And my dad was going to retire the next year, and he's like, "Oh, why don't you send your dad to my place? Like we have an extra place, you can stay there." And I was like, "Well, that sounds cool. Like, okay, So my dad retired, and we took him a couple months to clean up everything on this end in San Diego, and my dad's been living there now for almost 5 years on the same property as Jimmy. And through Jimmy, I've gotten to know a lot of people on the island and been able to go surf certain places that probably most people don't get to go surf. And it's been, I mean, you couldn't plan it any more sacred than that to have, because even people that go to Hawaii all the time, let's say other famous pro surfers or whatever that go to Oahu, they can't, a lot of guys get slack, they get flack when they come to Kauai, and it's just always had that underground, like, don't talk about it, don't take photos of it. And I respect that, because growing up in La Jolla, here in PB, you have the La Jolla Reefs, and that's how it was here. You don't take photos of this wave. And if they did, back in the day, they would probably try to smash your camera or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just always respected that. And there's kind of a long lineage with San Diego and Kauai. Like surfers have been going over there. In fact, I was talking to my pinliner, Larry Crow, who's 70 this year, and he went in 69. and surfed. And he just yesterday he was pinlining boards talking about Kauai and his experience, and and then Skip's daughter lives there, and there's a lot of San Diego guys that have gone over with like the Skip style boards. So there's sort of a culture of that board there, and I'm just fortunate enough to be building that same board and now having the connection like with Jimmy and then who he's introduced me to. I feel really lucky, just to be able to go over there. Yeah.
So how does your dad like it?
He loves it.
Does
he? Yeah, my dad, retired, Vietnam vet. His life was changed back in I guess my parents got divorced in '89. So my first trip to the Hawaii ever we went to Molokai.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we went to Molokai. We flew in, we stayed in Kauai, like right there, the main town. And we went, it was kind of end of summer. I think it was 8 or 9. And I just remember like, it was rad, but I definitely remember like my parents fighting and like, but we also got to meet some really cool people. We were at the Molokai Ranch, like hung with those guys. But what really the significant part of that trip is my dad went down to Kalapapa when you could still take the donkey ride down. And I had to hang up because, I was 9 back then. It was still contagious. So my mom and I just hung, and my dad went down. And basically what I've come to surmise is that he had a complete spiritual transformation. And so we came home after that. Hopefully he doesn't mind me telling the story, but I think it kind of defines how, like, I've always had a really nice connection with Hawaii in this sense. So we came home, and then he was supposed to go on a work trip with we used to do the Thunderboat races here, and he was going to go to the Las Vegas. So it was Molokai, San Diego Thunderboat races, next race is in Las Vegas. Well, unbeknownst to me or my mom, he went back to Molokai for 2 weeks. And I remember because his company kept calling, hey, is Dave Hall there? I'm like, no, he's on vacation.
That's
like
funny.
I didn't know. I was like in whatever 3rd or 4th grade, and he went back there, and he hung with, not just down in Kalapapa, but he hung with some of the other locals that we had met. And so when he came back from that trip, it was quit his job, divorced my mom, and moved out.
Wow.
And it's the happiest he's ever been. Like,
wow.
He hung in. Now in my adulthood, we've had some conversations. I've come to realize, like, he hung in way longer than he should have, but he did it because of me. He wanted to be around for his son. But that trip was like, just seeing the people down in Kalapapa and their spirit and their energy, like, tweaked. Like, that was it. He came back and just set his life straight, and he moved into my grandma's house in La Mesa, and then got a job at the Hotel Del. He's there from 90 till 2015.
Right.
And he worked every day. And
what is Kalapapa?
Kalapapa is it was the leper colony on the north side on Molokai, yeah. And they do tours. Tours sound so wrong, but you were able to go down and visit and see the colony and meet people, and it just changed him. I mean, it really, for him, it put in perspective like what was right or what needed to be right in his life, and it wasn't putting up with my mom's stuff or whatever. And his job, he was working graveyard shifts, so he's like missing a lot of like me growing up because he's working from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and then sleeping all, like it just, there was a lot of stuff, and that trip cleared it. And so I wouldn't have known that, like, 30 years later, we'd still have this really beautiful relationship with not only Kauai, but, we have our ohana in Waikiki, and Tori and I, my brother Eric Casco and Lahaina, we're godparents to his third son. So it's like just crazy how it's evolved.
So in regard to your dad and his kind of radical life change, I told you Lauren and I were at lunch with her grandmother, and her grandmother who's 86, and she's reflecting on life, and she just got out of 3 months of quarantine from COVID.
Yeah,
so she
so
hasn't
heavy.
had any human interaction. And so she really kind of spilled her heart out to us at lunch and was reflecting on life and things that she would have done differently and all of this. And as we were leaving that lunch, driving here, I said to Lauren, I was like, it's, there's no time to be miserable in life. And you got to make the right decision for yourself. And I know that you want to preserve things for the kids and all that sort of stuff, but kids don't want to be in an unhappy home either. And so it's brutal sometimes to have the conversations that need to be had, but it's worth it. Because living kind of with integrity and honesty and openness is the only way to live. Yeah. And it'd be a shame to get to that point to your 80s and look back and go, wow, there was 30 years that I was miserable. Yeah. And that I did something I didn't want to do. And by the way, your kids are fully aware of that. Yeah. You know, like you're not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. Yeah. If you're unhappy, people know it. You know?
Man, and especially kids.
Totally.
I think I always equate like young kids growing up, they're just sponges of electrical pulses.
For sure.
And they know without even being able to describe in words, they know what's going on.
Exactly.
Like I did.
Exactly.
Like, and I'm like, whatever.
Once he tells you later in life, it does fill in some of the context and the gaps. Yeah. But you knew. Yeah. You knew that they were unhappy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, living in two happy homes is better than one unhappy home. Totally. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad that your dad was able to rip that Band-Aid.
Yeah, he just ripped it off, and like he said, it was the best decision that he's ever made for himself.
Right.
And thankful to Jimmy and Jen for at that time, and we're all together in Oahu, to be like, hey, why don't you come stay with us?
Yeah.
Ultimately, my dad wants to return to Molokai.
Really?
Yeah. Ultimately. Awesome.
It's funny.
Again, I hope he's okay with me talking about it, but
you can ask before I publish this.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Kauai's like as rad as it can get too, and he's with family. So even though I can't be there and Tori, we can't be there, he's got Jimmy's family, and he's got the kids and the grandkids. So he's Papa Dave, so he has a full ohana to like be around and, because the worst thing would be to have him go somewhere and then he's just by himself.
Totally.
Like you want to keep him. So he's walking down to the beach every day or picks up trash, and he's, doing stuff for the VA over there.
Good.
So he's involved, and he's, awesome. And he does side projects too. Like he's a finished carpenter. So, if he's got to put on the belt and slam some nails and cut some wood, like my dad can handle, And
it's probably good for him anyways, just to have a job occasionally.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's kind of how
Well, back to boards. You said there's a culture of the big board thing there that was planted by Skip originally. Yet Jimmy reached out to you. Is there anybody on Kauai building that style of boards, or did Jimmy have to go to you in order to get it?
No, I mean, no. I'm sure there's guys over there that have gotten in. Stevie List builds some big 10-6 pintail, 5-fin guns and stuff. No, there's guys that do it. I think the Skip style itself is really unique. Yeah. And so I think it was maybe just the feeling of a board that he was looking for. Like, because, no, there's guys that build big boards over there. But it just was this, like, certain design thread that he was after.
Tell me, what are you referring to when you talk about big boards?
Well, people call them gliders. Gliders is like a general term. Down here, we call them big boards. So it's basically anything over 10-6. And then that's what we call them. And that, for me, that's just what Skip called them. Like when Clark came out with those blanks in the early 90s and Skip shaped his first 11-footer, that's just what they called them. They were big boards. So
what's unique about the Skip design that you're talking about that Jimmy was looking for?
I think, well, definitely the parallel rails and the lower rocker, and then just that kind of, up rail in the nose, neutral, and then hard edge in the tail. It's just a certain way that feeds through the water dynamically. And there's certain bottom contour aspects that what I feel need to be put into boards for them to operate correctly. But yeah, really it's just the parallel rails. So anytime you have a straight design element, either flatter rocker, straighter outline, that's going to increase speed, right? But it's also going to stiffen things up. So you have to counterbalance that with some bottom contours and curve in the outline to bring turnability back. And so it's kind of a yin and yang. Like you can overdo one for maybe one type of wave, or if you have too much tail rocker, I know it helps in the bigger surf, but like overall, like down here in San Diego, you can turn it anywhere you want on a wave, but when you want to really lay a rail on and go and like and hit it and jam down the line, you aren't going to be able to do that because the tail rocker is going to want you to come up the face to stay where the speed's at. So it's just a combo, man. I mean, there's a million ways to bake a cake, but kind of where Skip's taken his career for 60 years is, kind of my North Star, like that's
right.
where I'm trying to go. And it turns out that for a lot of waves over there, they work well, But I always say the bigger the board, the more aloha you got to show. Until the stand-up thing, because the stand-up guys took the heat off the big board guys.
A little bit, yeah.
Because they got to stay way outside,
With a big board comes a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. You just, down here we'll bounce, we'll surf one spot, catch 3-4 waves, go to the next spot, right? To not just totally gas a lineup out.
Right.
So, but it turns out they work really well there. And I think too, like Skip told me the story when he surfed in the Duke as an alternate about sunset. It's funny, he doesn't really talk or like remember a lot of details about that like era, like the golden era, like with the Wind and Sea Surf Club and Sunset and their trips over there. But he just told me, he's like, man, I remember paddling out Sunset and it just looked like houses rolling towards the beach. And all I could think of is, I just want more board. And I think him and Henson, when they went, had two 10-8s. It's like the Coho guns, the classic Skip. So that was that winter, and they took him to Coho to basically test drive them. And I think they had a 10-6, a 10-8, and 2 11-4s or something. But even at that, he goes, dude, I wanted more board.
Yeah. So let's dig into that a little bit, because before we turn the mics on, you were talking about him basically taking boards to Hawaii that were the same boards that he was riding here in San Diego, and then kind of having an episode of changes that need to be made. Retell that story, or talk me through that. And what were those changes?
Well, yeah, I just, you'd asked me why do you think big boards work well over there? And if you look back at the history of people from California heading to the North Shore, they were bringing the same boards that they were riding at Hermosa or Huntington or down here in PB, right? Their first trips. Then when they got over there, they go, oh yeah, these things spin out. Or
right.
So it took, other older pioneers like Kern and Diffenderfer and guys, we got to pull these, stretch these things out. So every subsequent trip, boards got more tuned in for going over there. But what I was alluding to is like, well, if those guys were able to ride, like if you look at the Duke, like in 64, 65, whichever the one was televised, I mean, like Rusty Miller and all these gnarly guys are riding longboards, like single fin longboards, and kind of making it, but most of the times not, right? So what I was saying is like, well, gosh, if I just, anything I build with all the knowledge that I've been passed down and my influence from here, it should work. It should work better than the old longboards. So yeah, that's kind of what I was referring to. Is like anything built nowadays is going to work way better than what those guys originally were going over on.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's some footage of Skip on his model at 4-foot Haleiwa, and he's just like, ugh, the model era. He's like, those are the worst boards. Like, that whole the G&S, like the stretch model, when Nat came over and won in 68, Skip's, he said I was, rocking company colors, riding the stretch model. He goes, that was like the worst board to shape and serve. He's like, I'd have done way better on my first home build, but that's, it's all history, but just interesting.
When you go to Kauai, do you ever build boards?
I've shaped 3 boards at Toppers. I don't know if
I don't.
Topper will probably be someone else that you interview maybe next time when you go there. He's got a little shaping bay. It's just about, I don't know, a couple 2-3 miles past Anahola as you head towards Honolulu. I built Jimmy 3 boards there just for fun. But Topper's a San Diego guy. He's originally from here, Sunset Cliffs. He knew, Stevie from back in the day here, and he's got a really he's got a colorful history too. You know, another guy that you should look
Yeah.
up. And I don't know him really well, but just from what Jimmy's told me.
But in terms of, you'd be able to spend a lot more time in Kauai if you could set up a board building gig there. Why don't you build boards when you're there?
Well, you know, it's just what you discovered, man. There's no, like, the glassing thing. Is
that the issue?
I don't glass. I've probably glassed 8 boards, 10 boards total. Like, let's just say I built 10 boards start to finish in my career. So I can't go teaching anybody anything, unfortunately. When I wanted to get into shaping, Skip goes, look, if you want to surf, just worry about shaping. Don't try to do the surf shape glass thing, because you won't have time to either. You'll put out 6 to 8 awesome boards and not surf, or it's going to take you a year to get boards to people because you're wanting to surf when the surf's good, right? And so I just stuck to that, and I had hats off to the guys that can do it all.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I mean, I think that's really gnarly, and I think few people can actually do it and pull it off, but it just wasn't my thing. So yeah, I mean, if there was a shop there that could just put out really, really quality glass jobs, I'd go do 20, 30 boards a year if they're, you know, if the work was there.
Right.
I have my own crew here. Diving glassing kicked out 3 years ago, and so I basically have the diving glassing crew, and they're probably the best finishing crew in the business, like anywhere. So I'm really fortunate. So part of me goes, well, the best boards are going to be built out of my home shop. If money wasn't an issue, I'd fly them all over there for a month, and we'd go, if there was the space and somebody had a shop there, it'd be, yeah. And then maybe, you know, somebody could pick up, you know, it's just tough, you know, it's, I know that their industry there is, you know, relatively small compared to other areas. So the fact that the guys that are building boards there can actually get them done is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to come in and be like, oh, I'm going to do 30 boards or 40 boards. And like, I don't, you know, hey, fact I can come surf, I'm stoked.
Right.
You guys want to get a couple boards a year is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the Hawaii thing. I know there's guys that can do it, but the glassing side of it's really tough because of the humidity and the temperature. And no one's going to pay to have a factory temp control. I mean, I wouldn't do it here. I mean, either the AC and the humidifiers, like that would put you out of business just for electrical costs. And so it's tough. You know, you got to, you know, like San Diego, most of the year, there's about 2 weeks in summer and 2 weeks in the wintertime where it's like, okay, yeah, you know, boards aren't going to come out as well built because it's either too cold or too hot. There's, you know, varying issues in there. But most of the year, man, it's like perfect prime time. My shop's like literally a mile up the channel from Mission Beach, so we always have a cool breeze, and you know the ceiling and the walls heat up, but like inside stays a pretty constant humidity and temperature. Again, a couple weeks in July and a couple weeks in December, it gets too hot or too cold, but they just come out really well built, and they're solid, and they don't delam, and they last. And so the boards that I have shipped to Hawaii, you know, Oahu and Kauai and Maui, people notice the difference. Like, whoa, I've had this board for 2 seasons and there's no heel dents or there's no delam. And again, you can do it, but like it's hard and expensive to, and if there's not that consistent work, if there's not, you know, whatever the number is a year, 200 or 300 or 400 or 500 boards going through a factory, it doesn't justify having that, you know, it's a huge expense. You know?
Totally. Tell me about what's been going on with your business through COVID.
Well, COVID, it was really weird because we were there the whole month of March.
Kauai.
In Kauai.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there in Kauai visiting my dad. And, you know, the shutdown started here, and I was talking to my business partner, and people were freaking out, and you're like, oh, you should close because of this, and, you know, liability, and then you're non-essential, and so it was hard to get a feel for like what the actual vibe was here in San Diego. And I got back and talked to my business partner, and we shut down for a little while. I was still going in shaping though. I had you know 30 or 40 blanks when I got back, and I have my own spot.
Did you have a backlog of orders because you were gone?
Not really. I kind of always run a queue, right? So I kind of always have like, okay, well, you ordered a board for me today, then I'll shape it in 8 weeks, and then it'll be done in 4 through the glassing. So I kind of always run that. And so my shop had work while I was gone. Like they didn't. We glassed some boards for Skip and some other guys down here also. But so when I came back, I had all these custom orders because all the shops, like I had, basically in February, March, April, I'm starting to line up shop orders for May, June, July. And customs, like if you order a custom in February, March at that time, it's like, oh, it's going to be 4 months, because I've got to get through these. I only do so many boards a week. And so I schedule it out. And then with my Japan thing, that's whatever, 16 boards a month or so it's like, if you're doing 8 a week, 16, that's half a month,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can obviously shape more than that, but it's a good balance. It's good flow for the shop. And so when I came back, I just told all the shops, like, look, until we figure out how this is going to play out, I'm just going to keep your orders. And I have a website, I have an online store, and a little showroom now. So I just, versus putting the burden on them to have to pay for a 6 or 8 pack, I just kept them and then kept them in-house and put them up online. And so that helped alleviate that. And then I just started going right to my customs, which is cool because the way it is now, like if you call up, like you probably get a board in 6 weeks. The other bummer was, and partly because of COVID and partly now because my dad's got a little eye thing we got to get taken care of, I'm not going to France. It's the first time in a decade that I've been in San Diego in May and June. So the last 10 years, everything prior to my France trip is all my wholesale stuff. It's all my Japan stuff, all the shop stuff, right? So now that that's not happening, I'm here. And it's cool because it's like, okay, yeah, guys go, hey, I want to go. Yep, all right, cool. I'll order your blank. I'll come next week. I'll probably shape it the week after. So people are able to actually get a board in time. And then the other thing that I think why it's really busy right now is like we were talking about earlier. Families are canceling trips. People are scared to travel. So on my analogy that I've used, not just like we were talking earlier, it's like, well, what's a family trip to Kauai for 10 grand for 2 weeks? Well, they aren't going. So dad wants a new board. So
yeah,
I hope it stays how it is. I mean, if I could just do, 25 or 30 customs a month, like Skip, basically one a day, that's awesome.
Right.
It's the first time in a long time I'm actually enjoying shaping, like
really
being in there and being like, yeah, all right. Like, oh yeah, Dave ordered his board. He surfs at the river. Okay. Yeah. And get in there. Not that I haven't not enjoyed it, but it's like, it's fun because it's customs. I'm not just doing 7.6 Fish Simmons or 6.8 Pisces or, whatever. It's like, oh, he ordered a 10.6 Diamond Tail, or, a guy in the Big Island ordered a 12-foot pintail. So it's like every day you go in and one at a time, start to finish, man. It's kind of like it was 10, 12 years ago before I got busy. Mm-hmm. So I got time to surf. I got time to like shoot my bow, work out with my wife, and nothing, I have bad hips. So I'm trying to like put off hip surgery as long as I can. So with our workouts and what we're doing, like it's actually, my body feels good and surfing doesn't hurt. And I can do all that stuff all in the same day. And it's kind of put it in a perspective of like, well, when we get past this COVID stuff, this might just be the, new normal.
Yeah.
It might be.
It's funny the way that COVID has reset things in a good way in so many different ways. Like certainly we've learned to value essential things,
mm-hmm.
But we're also spending more time with family and all that. But yeah, in a work professionally, you've learned to kind of trim a lot of fat and tighten your belt and run a more lean business.
Yep.
And then also just start appreciating those types of things. There's a lot of good, I think, that can come out of all the horror.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. First of all, we're really lucky.
Exactly.
Right?
The fact that your business is thriving alone is unique.
Yeah, I know. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot of not this example, unfortunately. And I don't think a lot of people thought 3 to 6 months from now, when the stipend runs out and the government can't pay the dole and there's no jobs because they've been shut down, companies have been shut down for so long. That's kind of looming out there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I never would have forecasted this. I don't know if it's like a culmination. Like, for example, like I have a lot of big board orders right now. And right when we were in Kauai, I did that little thing with Surfer Magazine talking about the big boards, and then since then there's been a couple good swells over there, and I've seen some photos of guys riding, you know, my boards and like solid surf, and I'm like, all right, man, like that's really cool. I guess what I hope what comes out of COVID is, and I've talked to people in my industry and like other industries, is that people really do start to question and care about what they're buying.
I agree.
Right? Because people might not have a lot of money coming out of this. And so when you go to lay out $1,000 or $1,500 or $150 for a pair of shoes or jeans, they're actually really like, wow, this was like Jocko Origin USA in Maine. He goes, Josh, he's like, I'm one machine away from being able to compete with China prices on building jeans, and everything, the denim's made in the United States and the jeans are made at my shop in Maine. So it's like, I'd pay an extra $20 to know that those jeans were made here in the U.S., right? Sure. Now, again, we can't take it, like, I guess, how far can we take the, you know, don't support the China builds, right? A lot of stuff, unfortunately, what we use in daily life is unfortunately made there. But if I can help it and people think, you know, because we are quick to forget, hopefully they'll remember, like, oh yeah, well, you know, the overseas built stuff, the built boards, you know, really? Like, you want to, I've seen more wave storms in the last 2 months than I can count, which really bums me out, but I also can't be like, what the fuck are you doing on that fucking thing, you know? You're a great surfer, get aboard, you know? But that's another argument. But, you know, I think people, when they come to spend that money, they're going to really value where it's coming from. And hopefully they don't forget what's transpired in the last 4 months, you know?
I know. I hope so too. I think I agree with you though. I'm definitely more interested in sourcing of things than I ever have been before. And I'm not sure even how it's related to COVID, but I think it is. And it feels gross to be as wasteful as I was prior to COVID. So pre-COVID, I felt like I was on a hamster wheel, and we're dining out. Hamster wheel in every way. Yeah. Like hamster wheel in just terms of emails that I can't catch up with. Yeah. I'm on the freeway every day going back and forth to work, plus doing a bunch of podcasts, plus you know, going out to eat 3 nights a week and drinking all the time and all that sort of stuff. And COVID's forced us to turn the volume down and just sit and listen and be with yourself, and I catch up on emails, and then I have a few hours left in the day. Yep. So then I go for a run, and all of a sudden I feel better. Yep. And then I go, wow, okay, well, if I want to run tomorrow, then I probably shouldn't eat, you know, 16 ounces of red meat tonight or whatever I would do previously.
Or conventional red meat.
Well, right. So then there's that. Yeah. So then there's, for whatever reason, and partially from my conversation with Dustin Barca on that trip, but a lot of other things too, I'm like, oh, where do you get your meat from? Yeah. And then I'm also simultaneously reading Michael Pollan's book. Yep.
Which one? The
How to Change Your Mind, but also the food one.
Okay.
The Omnivore's Dilemma. Yeah. So I'm learning all about sourcing and the commercial
sustainable farming
and the whole supply chain involved in every type of food that we put in our body. And it's like, oh my God, this is horrifying, right? So you want to be more conscientious about the meat sourcing and stuff like that. Yeah. And I am totally willing to spend a premium because
time to pick up a bow, learn how to hunt.
Right. Exactly. So that we should actually have that conversation, which I'm so jealous of.
No, but keep going. I don't want to interrupt you with that.
No, you're not interrupting. It fits in perfectly. We have elk sitting over there. That's what's on the menu this evening.
Elk sirloin.
Where did that come from?
That came from New Mexico last September 12th. I harvested my first bull elk with a bow on public land. Guided. It was a guided hunt. Okay. But still public land, so you don't know what you're going to get. And yeah, the archery thing for me has been an amazing, crazy culmination of connections and timing. And
how did you even get into it?
Well, I had a bow when I was young. So my dad's brother is a elk hunter. And I remember he lived in Oregon, and we drove up when I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8. And I walked into his house and he had this big elk mount, right? Like full shoulder mount. I'm like, wow, that thing's crazy. And he was an archer. So he set me up with a 3D target and a bow. sent me home. My dad, we drove down and yeah, I just go out in the backyard, just, plug arrows away. And I just thought it was cool. And then they kind of quit talking and, whatever else happened in life, sports and surfing and whatnot. But I really loved it. We always had like BB guns and 22s growing up because of my dad. And although my dad wasn't a hunter because he's like, I've hunted the ultimate predator, right? Vietnam and stuff. So hunting for him was never like, yeah, let's go. I want to teach you how to hunt. But, fast forward to, I don't know, last 2-3 years, going to France, and I listen to podcasts when I shape, right? Because it's I've learned so much. I've listened to books and I've listened to, so I got on the Joe Rogan podcast and then I hear these guys all chumming it up and they're in Lanai. I think it was Joe Rogan, John Dudley, who's become a friend, Cam Haynes, I don't know, Barklow's there, Shane Dorian. So I'm like, oh, Shane Dorian and Mark Healy hunt. I was like, well, that's kind of cool. So I'd listen to this podcast and I was like, man, I go to Hawaii like 5 times a year. Like, what an opportunity, like to maybe go hunt. And so I came back and it turns out that Tori's dad has hunted with Bob Fromm, who's the legendary archer, owner of Performance Archery right here in San Diego. So a lot of these guys come to town, like Rogan's come down to get his bow built. Dorian and Mark Healy, Matt Miola, like those guys come and get their bows built here in San Diego. I'm like, well, shit, it's right up the street.
Yeah.
Well, pretty much 15 minutes. So I went up there and Tori's dad reached out to Bob. Hey, my son-in-law's going to come up. And he's like, yeah, I'll take care of him. And I went up there and we met. And of course, he's a surfer. So in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, man, maybe I'll trade a board for a bow, right? Like full barter style. And Bob, if anybody knows Bob, he's like not going to trade like that, but he was great. He took me in. I go, look, I want to do this. I want to learn to hunt. I want to learn archery. Like, what do I get? Like, I just went in. I go, look, I build high-end boards. I believe in you get what you pay for. If it's a quality built product, right? At any level, you get what you pay for. Like we were talking about Costco wines, right? Same thing. So I went in, he goes, okay, you're going to get this bow, you're going to get this release, these arrows to start because you're going to break a bunch in the beginning, and then spent like a couple hours with me on the range. Like I hadn't shot a bow in 25 years or whatever. And he just, do this. And of course I was like nervous. I knew about him. And that was the start. So that was September of 2018. Just shot. And San Diego thankfully has 3D tournaments throughout the month, 3D targets. So like, not quite life-size targets, but some are. And, you usually have 28 and you walk. It's kind of like a golf course. You go around with the group and, all right, well, there's a white-tailed deer at 35 yards. And so everybody shoots and you score. And I don't know, just everything. I mean, it was the first time I felt like a that first time when you're a Grammy, you go to a surf shop. You just want to be in there all day, but not ask dumbass questions or do dumb shit.
Yeah. That
was me again. And I was like, 37, 38? I'm like, whoa. And I just go up there and like try not to say anything dumb and, pick up dust. And the whole crew up there is they're awesome. They're awesome guys. And shot. Got invited to go on a pig hunt because every month, like, so March, April, May, June, they basically like 1 or 2 employees from the shop organize a pig hunt up in Central California. And they go, hey, we have some spots you want to go. So like, yeah. So that was my first hunt. And I fortunately harvested a pig, a wild boar. I think it was like 180 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just was like, all right, I'm hooked. And so
do you butcher it?
I did not. It was a guided hunt. It was, we had one guide per 2 hunters and we spot and stocked it. It was over a weekend and they handle it. I mean, it's like, they shape pigs like I shape boards. It's just no brainer. They put it in the cooler and then the next day before we were leaving, butchered it, just like boom.
And then you went home with all that meat?
Yeah, but I brought it to our local butcher who then put it into like chops, belly, bacon.
Got it.
Ground meat. And then that was I believe that was in May of last year.
By the way, do you have a freezer in the garage?
We have 3. We have that one, and then we have a full-size fridge and a chest freezer.
Do you still have pork from that pig?
Oh, yeah, plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still have it.
Yeah.
And then I put in, so you can put in for tags in different states. Bob's like, hey, get in touch with this company. This was January last year. Get in touch with this company, Epic Outdoors. Sign up with them and just tell them what you can do, what your financial situation is and your timing. And so you sign it, you fill an application, and they apply for you, right? Because it's a crazy maze of each state has different deadlines for
Windows,
application.
yeah.
You get points. Some states, like New Mexico, for example, where I got drawn last year, doesn't have a point system. It's just a raffle every year, So I did that. I got in touch with those guys. I go, here, Well, the other thing last year is we were getting married, right? Originally it was, so elk season's basically like August 30th to September 24th, or maybe later for archery, right? Well, our wedding date was September 28th. So, and at Scorpion Bay. So it was like, we got to get down there. Well, I had the hunt date from the 9th to the 14th, plus driving to New Mexico. Anyways, long story short, there's so much because it's crazy. So there's these shoots at different places in the United States called the Total Archery Challenge. And it's basically, the first one I did was in Park City. You take the gondola up, and there's like 6 courses on the mountain. So we're at 8, 9, 10,000 feet, hiking around, shooting anywhere between 30 and 100 yard targets. It's like really, it for me, it was the best training to what a real life hunting situation would be. Through that, so another person that got into archery last year is Jocko Willink, right? We've talked about it. So Jocko got his bow built by the guys at Performance and John Dudley, who's Knock On Nation, Knock On TV. They all got together and got Jocko a bow. I think John did, and they did it Performance. So he started shooting. Anyways, he has a house in Big Sky. And the next shoot was in Big Sky. So, hey, Jocko. And I met John Dudley on the hill via Jocko. He's like, yeah, my buddy from San Diego's up there. Like, check him out. Him and his wife are super cool. So we hit it off, and I met his whole crew. And he goes, well, are you coming to Big Sky next weekend? And I'm like, it was sold out because you had to sign up for this. And he's like, come on, man. Like, you just come with us. And I'm like, you sure? Jocko's a cool. He's like, yeah, man, you can stay at my place. I'm like, all right. So then I went, we flew home. I flew out, almost didn't make it because the flights got canceled, whatever. It was a nightmare. But we made it, and I got to shoot again with John, and he had his Knock On Nation. So I just tagged along with like Jocko and John, and got to meet John Barklow and like all that whole archery crew. Just legendary, awesome humans. The Black Rifle guys, the Yeti guys, like just crazy. Yeah. I'm like, I'm just a board builder in San Diego that loves to shoot arrows. And so that practice, and then that was the end of July. Tuned up my bow, and then went and hunted and harvested this elk that we're going to eat tonight in New Mexico.
What was the hunt like?
Well, we did 52 miles in 4 days.
Wow.
It was, I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I kind of knew what to expect going in. Obviously having a guide, I paid for a guided entry into the draw, so it upped my chances to get drawn. And Derek, my guide, he's just a billy goat. He's born and raised out there. He's been hunting and guiding since he was like 10, so I had to keep up with him. He's 27 or 28 and just charging. And we were in elk within an hour of the first morning. So you hike in the dark in the morning, then you hunt. Usually take a break midday, and then you start up again in the afternoon, and then you hike out at the dark. So we're basically leaving at 4 a.m. and coming back at 10. We weren't camping. We actually stayed in a cabin, but just was, long days. And we hunted this one zone for 2 days in elk, but the wind or satellite, we couldn't, he'd call bulls in, but we couldn't get him within 50, and we get, blown out by a spike bull or satellite bull. And so the third morning, we had a big 6-point, beat us up to a ridge, and he came in, he bugled us at 30 yards. If you've ever heard an elk bugle, it rattles your chest cavity.
Really?
If they're within 100 yards. It's just the most crazy sound. And he's just like, and he was coming right at us, so he surprised us. He came up this ridge way quicker than we thought, so we got caught on the wrong side of a tree for cover. Anyways, the wind switched because it just was like 6:30 and the thermals changed and we felt it on the back of our necks, and he stopped, and then he moved about 8 yards, and then Derek's like, shoot, why did you shoot? And I didn't have a shot. I had to let it go through trees,
Yeah.
He was on his knees and had a shooting lane. I was standing up because I didn't want to move like while the bull was there. Anyway, so the next morning we went to a completely different range, hiked up like 1,200 feet straight up the side of a hill, started glassing ridge lines and these crazy canyons. And he's like, no, let's get out of here. We went home, like rested. I had a couple beers, had lunch, took a nap, woke up, shot my bow. Then we went to this other zone and immediately like hiked in 2 miles. He let out a couple of cow calls and boom, there was 4 bulls in this little pocket of a canyon. And this thing, he called in from like 700 yards across a canyon straight at us. And he goes, okay, get ready. I'm going to go back up the hill 50, 60 yards. And sure enough, it came. It didn't come right. He's like, it's going to come right at you. I'm like, okay, And it came up a little to my left, and I ranged it at 55 yards, and he went by on cover, came to full draw. When I ranged it, I was totally shaking, like, oh, okay. Thankfully, my range has image stabilization, thank God. And I didn't have to chirp at him to stop him. He put his head down to feed, and I stepped back out, and it was 55 yards, and it was a liver lung shot, and was like really stoked. But then we let it go for a half hour because you want them to kind of, you don't want to chase them because they'll go for miles if they.
Okay.
Yeah. If you
so it's a clean shot. It
wasn't a lung heart. It wasn't like a heart shot. If you need a heart shot and or a double lung shot, it's going down within 100 yards. Most cases. Mine was a little back, but it was quartering away, so I got liver lung. So,
but you could identify that.
Could. I could. Okay. I'm just like full rookie. I don't. I'm like, it wasn't guts. You don't want guts because unfortunately you could hurt an animal and either have a very long slow death or it heals up, but it's always, it's got an arrow in it or something. So we let it go for about 30 minutes. Well, Derek's such a badass. He called another bull into 20 yards while we were waiting for that.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we got on the blood trail, lose the blood trail. And we were doing 360s around the last blood. We couldn't figure out where it went. And then it was getting dark, and he's like, hey, shh. And you could hear something walking real slow, but pretty close, but we couldn't see it. He goes, we got to get out of here. So we left. We backed out. We marked it on the GPS, went home, like kind of celebrated. It's like, okay, I have an arrow and a bull. I'm like, fuck, I hope we find this thing. So we went back in the morning, back to the blood trail, same thing, an hour and a half. Finally, Derek's like, okay, stay here. I'm going to start doing a grid. So we started gridding this whole hillside, and then I hear him whistle. So I went from complete depression, devastation, the worst feeling I've ever had. One, I felt bad. I mean, it's like, holy shit, I heard, shot this animal. I don't know if it's going to die. And then I heard him whistle, and it was complete elation. Just like went around the corner, saw the beautiful blonde of its hide, and just was like, wow.
And it was down.
It was down. Wow. Yeah, it was dead. It was dead. Yeah.
From the night before, probably.
I don't know. Yeah. With the shot, like when we rolled it over and saw it, yeah, it probably died that night.
Yeah.
And that's where the work began because we had to get out like 250 some pounds of meat between 3 of us. And yeah, that was gnarly.
Do you do it all in one trip?
We did that, but the guy, Derek and his buddy went back in to get the head and the cape. So I'm going to get a shoulder mount. But that was brutal. I mean, I probably had 100 pounds of meat on my back, and it was really hard. Thankfully, it was close to the forest trail, and the forest trail is pretty flat, but that's why you see guys like Cam Haynes and Rogan and Dudley and all these guys train all year for 1 week.
Right.
And it makes total sense after that.
How long did it take to dress it? And then how many miles out?
We were just about 2.5 miles from the truck.
Okay. It's not too bad.
Yeah. And we were only about 100 yards down from, like I said, we came in on a forest trail, but walking, not driving. So it was pretty flat. And then the bull was only about 100 yards down from that, thankfully, because that canyon kept going down.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't see the bottom of it. It was like one of those nightmares. But just got everything up to that point, man, between people and timing and luck. And it just, you couldn't have written it. I couldn't have written it.
Good.
Yeah. So sorry to geek out about that. But
no, that's such a good story.
It was amazing.
Was the pig the first animal that you had ever killed? And the elk
well,
the
yeah,
second?
besides like doves with pellet guns when I was like 10. But yeah, as far as a hunt, yeah, the boar was the first one.
How did you feel, like ethically and emotionally and morally and just human about both those animals?
Well, my main thing, like, it's not about like, oh, I want to get the biggest 6-point. Like, literally, my is like, I want to harvest meat. You know, my wife cooks, we eat meat, and her dad, her sisters hunt. Like, so just for me, it was like, I just want to harvest meat, you know, and provide, and do it ethically, obviously. When I shot the pig, it was a long stalk and things stood up, and you really just focus on your technique. You know, like, okay, like there's the spot, and that you're just like, you know, don't blow the shot, like have a clean shot. And I shot it, and it went down within 30 yards, I think. And so I don't know, I kind of was in disbelief. I was like, did that just happen?
Right.
Because this thing stands up, you know, and it was way bigger than it looked. Like the guy's like, oh, 30 yards. I'm like, okay, boom. And then it went down, and we walked up on it. I was like, holy shit, that's a big pig. Because you kind of black out. Like you kind of, you know, it's like that, what do they call it when you're in the zone? You know, you just like
fugue state.
Yeah. You just, I don't even, like, how was it? I was like, were you nervous? Like, no, I don't remember.
It
just happened. And then thankfully it went down. You know, we didn't have to go find it or get any dogs to go find it. So, and then
a pig is ugly. It's almost easier to take a life strangely of something that's not cute.
Yeah.
But a elk is so majestic.
Yeah.
That it feels like there'd be more emotion involved in an elk.
Oh yeah. Every emotion you can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in them. I mean, I had a spike elk within 10 feet of me do a full almost 360 until he got my wind. Like from me to the TV, just walking around in a circle, and they're 6 feet tall. I mean, I told Derek after the second afternoon, so 2 days of being in them all day, I was like, price of admission, I'm good.
Right.
Like if I get one, right on. If I don't, right on. Like it was
amazing.
They're amazing. But again, the meat and, you know, hunting's conservation. That's a hard topic for a lot of people to understand. You know, I got a lot of hate. I posted on my Instagram, and, you know, I got maybe a couple, I don't know, 100 and some comments, and 75% of the negative ones were from Europe, which is weird. Like from France. Like, you guys eat more force-fed duck and cured meats than like any other country around. And then the other small chunk of people, the haters, were from South America. It was really curious. And yeah, it was gnarly because it got so bad. Like my distributor in France was like, hey bro, like I understand why you hunt, but our customers over here are having a hard time with it. I'm like,
wow.
Well, then tell them, then either they're all vegetarians and grow their own food, or tell them to get fucked.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, so you don't change what you're going to post based on that feedback?
No.
Based on the optics for your business?
No, I mean, I'm sure a gnarly business guy would be like, look, keep personal, and business, but like, I'm sorry. It's like, it's my Instagram. I don't have time for 2 Instagrams.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't
time
change.
for one, you know?
I personally wouldn't change either.
Yeah.
And
I told them, I'm like, then tell them to not eat foie gras or chorizo or, you know, like, or they're making all their food in their own house. Like that's a tough conversation to get people. Like, it's really polarizing amongst other things right now that we're currently dealing with. Right. Like, it's a real polarizing issue, but if it weren't for hunters, there'd be no money for conservation or biologists to go study herds and say, hey, like, we can't hunt here this year because the herds are low or whatever. So anyways, sorry to go off on that.
No. So how long will that elk last you?
We probably have, between the pig and my elk, we probably still have, I don't know, 40 pounds of meat.
So it'll last you 2 years?
A year.
A year.
Yeah, because I hope to go elk hunting again in September, and we're in May or June now. So probably have it. We don't eat it every night.
Right.
But we also haven't bought meat from a store in a year.
Right. Do you notice any diminishing diminishing of quality
Not
after it's
yet.
been in the freezer?
Not yet.
Do you expect to, or do people?
It won't last. I mean, the meat won't, like, we'll eat it before that happens.
So at the end of a year, it doesn't taste worse than at the beginning of the year.
I don't know. I have nothing to compare it to.
But you talk to people who kill animals and
Yeah, I don't. I mean, no one's ever really said. It's not like fish. You know how fish gets, like, you get freezer burn.
Yeah.
And then you got to, like, trim fish up to. I don't think so. The way they wrap it, they do the saran wrap and they do it in, like, double, butcher wax paper. I haven't seen any diminishing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
That's
far.
awesome.
But not buying meat from a conventional store is what matters. Like,
Totally.
So.
And not supporting the commercially.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, the commercial farm stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
In regard, I mean, this kind of relates tangentially to fitness. What's your hip injury from?
Well, I was a breech baby, so I came out butt first, and I literally just found out not last weekend, the weekend before, that my mom barely made it to the hospital. So I have an older half brother. My aunt's like, "Oh yeah, your mom like almost had you in the back of a car."
Wow. Okay.
And so I was breech, so I came out ass first, and I got MRI, and well, there's a long history with it, but the most recent one I got an MRI and X-rays in August of last year, and I always thought I had leg calvopathies. It's called LCP, which is when you're born, you don't have any cartilage on your top of your hip joints. It's usually a male Caucasian thing. I don't know why. Just through the science, that's what it is. But this doctor goes, no, he goes, I think you were born with hip dysplasia. So basically, I mean, you can figure out the mechanics. For a baby to come out ass first, where do its legs have to be? Over its fucking shoulders. Mm-hmm. And so basically your hip joints pop out or dislocate so that you can come through the canal. And in that time, there can be some damage. So basically what I have is egg-shaped femoral heads, and then I have really shallow cups, hip cups. So in the x-rays that we just had, the doctor's like, yeah, so basically picture like your front tire that's out of alignment and the inside tread's totally bald, but the outside tread's totally good. He's like, that's kind of what you have. What exacerbated it though on my left side is, well, it's my back leg. I'm a goofy foot. I go left to right in the shaping room, but I broke this leg playing soccer in high school. And so when I was 15, 16, I never properly built that muscle back up. So through surfing and then through other sports, and then once I started shaping full time when I was 26, I was just bound up and tight, but my left side was weak. So it helped like exacerbate the inflammation in the joint, and then some of the cartilage. Like the MRI guy said, yeah, you don't have a labrum in your left hip. Mm. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. So yeah, surfing for the last 15 years isn't always enjoyable.
That's rough, man.
Yeah, it's rough.
You look more fit than I remember last time we did a podcast together. Is that accurate? Are you more fit?
Yes, I've definitely worked out a bunch in the last 6 months.
Just in the last 6 months?
Yeah, it's weird.
What inspired that?
Well, just one, my wife's a badass. Her and her sister work out every day. Elk hunting, realizing like there was a couple situations, like if we had gone and killed a bull in one of these canyons we went to, I looked at my guide like, dude, you're gonna have to get me out of here.
Really?
Yeah, like really, really steep canyons, and just being like, fuck, like I'll be 40 in October this year, so it's like, and then you see other guys like, Rogan's in his 50s, Cam Hanes, like these guys are just badasses. Jocko, like they train every day, so it's been good motivation. But the problem is like anything I do, if I'm not balanced and strong, my hips take the brunt of whatever I do. Like I don't run. I used to be a really good runner. I played soccer my whole life, but I can't. Like it inflames it. So we've been working with a girl, Noelle, and her company's called Movement for Life and Sport, or Sport and Life. And she's all about retraining your transverse abdominis, so basically like your glutes and your lower abs and how your hips sit. And so I was back left and twisted, probably have been that way for 10 or 12 years. And so since November, we've been able to get my hip to actually sit properly. And like we've been doing these really rad workouts. So we'll work out, deadlifts, and there's crazy sit-up combinations and such, planks and all these really basic rudimentary movements, but they engage all this stuff that's because of just how my hips are that have not been engaged. And man, I'll do that workout and then I'll go surf for 2 hours and I'll go shape a board. I come home and I'm like, my hips don't hurt.
Amazing.
I have to stay on it though. Like if I don't, we roll out every morning we have these like really gnarly black, not foam rollers, but PVC piping. So it's like just, really hard softballs. And we both have different, Tori and I both have different things with our hips. And so we have to stay on it. But I'll tell you what, man, like to be able to do all that in a day and come home and not be pissed off. Because I came home from my elk hunt, worked. Like my hips hurt. I was a dick to her. She's like, you're so fucking mean. I'm like, because basically I'm in pain all day.
Yeah.
And I've been that way for a long time. I deal with it. Thank God I'm not like a drug addict and take, oxys or painkillers.
Right.
A lot of people would.
Totally.
So I was so fed up with it last summer that I just like, fuck, I want to get a hip replacement, and they're like, look, if you can't sleep at night, okay, maybe. But so this workout we've been doing the last 6 months has really helped it out.
Good.
Like I can't believe it.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
good.
That's like pump. So yeah, I enjoy working out if it doesn't hurt. We have she bought me one of the Air Assault bikes, the Echo Rogues, and man, 15, 20 minutes on that thing and you're done.
Really?
Yeah. And these guys, like my one buddy Trevor can sit on that thing for like an hour and a half, like just,
You build up tolerance for certain.
Yeah.
It's funny how influential Rogan has become.
Yep.
Isn't it? Like,
it's got to be a blessing and a curse for him, though.
Well, for him, for sure. But I'm just curious. I'm interested. Like, I can't remember. I don't know, somebody that organically like coming up and like influencing, like guys get into hunting now because of Rogan. Guys are now
100%
doing kettlebell workouts because of Rogan that never would have gotten into the gym before. Like all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating
how
much
crazy.
He's resonated with people. I almost feel like he is I don't know, like the archetype machismo, like fitness and like eat a bunch of meat and hunt your food and all that sort of stuff flies in the face of like this kind of feminization maybe of male culture for the prior decade. It almost is like a stretching back to the other side. And I think the UFC is kind of that at large.
Yeah, he was supposed to be up in Big Sky last summer, but I think his wife had planned a trip, so I was maybe going to meet him last summer, which would have been cool. But for everyone I talked to, like Jocko and stuff, he's like, dude, Joe's cool. He's just like normal. I mean, he's like, I'm a normal guy. I like to learn things. Yeah. And, I have my opinions, but I'm not going to like shut anybody else down because their opinion's different from mine. And that's just what we need more of that. Like what happened to critical thinking in America? Exactly. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
It's like all this shit that's going on right now. Like literally like today, like in San Diego, there's things burning. It's like, what the fuck?
I know.
It's bullshit.
It really is.
It's like, what happened? Yeah. And, social media, good or bad, it's like, it's crazy. But he's like kind of just this neutral,
no nonsense.
He just interviews and he's very inquisitive and he's a good converses well. And like, it's cool. I've learned, I think I started on his podcast at 7:55 and what's he at now? Like almost 1,500 or something. Yeah. So imagine that's a lot of hours and he's just great, man.
When are we going to get Jocko on this podcast?
I would say, this morning where we were going to go surf, we had a chance. He gave me a live surf report. I'll show you. That can happen. He'd be down.
I would love to, dude.
He just got interviewed. He said a little inside cover thing for Surfer's Journal.
No way.
Yeah, just good. Like a one pager, but he
surfs
all the time. Him and his kids, dude.
I would love to talk to. I think all of my listeners would love to hear from him. Aside from like all the Navy SEAL stuff that he's already talked about with everybody else, like have a surf conversation with him.
Oh, he'd be stoked.
That's what I want to talk about.
If you knew where he lived, bro, you'd be like. He lives across the street from two of my favorite waves in San Diego. Like
yeah,
you could throw a baseball and hit the waves.
How's he surf?
He's great. He's a goofy foot, thank God.
Yeah.
I just shaped him at 11.7 because he's a big guy.
Yeah,
but he's in great shape, but he's just big, like thick. So he's rides some smaller. He has a couple boards from John Hawley and Gene Cooper is a friend of his, and He's got a beautiful quiver. He's got some boards from some friends of his that have passed, like these big Brewer balsa guns that, they're for riding. They're for, I mean, he'll ride them, right, to respect the boards and stuff and his friend. But, I just built him this big 11.7, and that's, I think, pretty much what he's been cruising on.
It's been really cool to see his fame for, I mean, he was always successful.
Influence,
Yeah, influence. He was always successful, obviously, as a SEAL in that world, but like just his prominence on a public sphere, it's been really rad to see in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
how well he's done, and how he's leveraged it to actually grow businesses.
Yeah,
he's a real interesting story.
No, he's cool. We've become really good friends. His wife Helen and Tori, like, they talk all the time, and we've hung out at their place, a couple times, and he's just a good vibe guy.
That's awesome.
He's just good vibes, and he's got all his kids in town right now because he has 3 daughters and Thor, so they're all at home, because the daughters have had to come back from college and stuff, and they're just great people, man. Like, that's awesome. You just need more of that in these times, like look for some anchors, look for certain northern stars to sort of, even if you could just go that direction a little bit in your life, it's going to be better than not, right?
Totally.
So
totally.
Yeah, he's a great, and he's right here. I see him like all the time.
Yeah, that's so cool. In closing, final question for everybody is, what was the last surfboard that you rode? And kind of a broader question for you is just, what are you building now, and what are you excited about, and where's your business like design-wise going?
The last board I rode was yesterday. It was a 9-foot Fitzsimmons with Marlon Bacon's not glass on bamboos. He's actually making the bamboo fins for future bases. Yeah. So I've got a 9-footer that I've been riding the last season. Really fun, and I'm building a lot of everything again because of the customs. I built a pintail nose rider 2+1. Yesterday was an 11-foot eagle. The day before that was, a 9.6 nose rider down to a 6.6 egg. Like, it's really fun to shape because everybody's like, well, I've got this, and I have your one model, and I got a model from this guy and this guy, and it's just back to like being fun and creative. And I just shaped myself a 10.6 diamond tail, like pointed nose diamond tail, model I haven't shaped in 12 or 13 years. Wow. So
I think listeners would be curious to hear what Skip's up to now too, and is he still surfing? And
Skip, yeah. So he is in the with the COVID thing, he'll be 79 this year, so he's like upper tier of the people that need to quarantine. So yeah, they quarantine really hardcore for 6 or 8 weeks, and then I think 2 or 3 weeks ago he got back down to the shop just to like. He's like, I'm kind of losing weight, I'm like, well, you aren't surfing. He's like, yeah, I know. So he's been back at the shop on lockdown, kind of building a couple boards. He's not seeing any outside clients, so don't call him looking for a custom because you aren't going to get it. He just has a couple people that he likes to build boards for, and he did get his first surfed in a couple days ago. And, if he's been really bummed the last couple of years on the crowds and just the whole thing, you know, and he's like, I'm going to hang it up. And of course he said that probably for 30 years, but like, the last few years have been really tough. And so, but he said he surfed, said he was totally worked, so he went home to take his Epsom salt bath and soak. But he's hopefully going to be back into it. We're getting into Sano time. So Skip loves going up to Sano during the summer, and we're getting there, and the water's getting warmer, and he's just stoked.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Still at it, man.
Glad to hear it.
The legend, our North Star, as we call him down here.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome, Josh Hall. Let's eat some elk.
Let's eat some elk. All right. Cheers.